Something else too, since you brought it up, and I guess this is one of the things we want to talk about anyway, so this is a good intro, is the diet breaks,
Yeah.
protocols, cushions for, like unforeseen circumstances, injury, family problems, travel, work, or whatever. We hear a lot of people say you don't want to peak early.
Oh yeah, be careful.
Yeah, you do. Just got to do it right. But so when you're starting your prep, okay, and you're trying to figure out how many weeks they're going to do, because obviously, we don't do that standard 16-week prep. I still don't know where that comes from. That's a whole different subject.
Better than 12.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure you have something you look at. Okay, this is what we have as an anticipated rate of loss, but let's kind of cushion it up for some other things. How do you formulate that with your clients?
Well, a lot of what I do is focus around, like I said, I work with some pretty fantastic athletes now, looking at like the pro schedule and the national schedule. So I'll typically have my clients do at least one, maybe two shows before a national show. That way, for me, peak week is a diet break. So that's an opportunity. And then I'll try to fit at least one diet break in before peak week. That way, by the time we get to the national stage, we've had 3 or 4 diet break weeks, and we can really start to set ourselves up for success. And a lot of that just comes down to where's the person at starting prep. I always err on the side of caution. I always tell people, like, listen, let's start now. Let's get ahead early, because if you're ready early, it's way easier to bring food up, bring cardio down, maintain. You'll even look better. But if we're behind, we have a lot less opportunity. We have to run you into the ground, and the results are just not nearly as positive. So I always err on the side of caution.
Predictable too, when you got to ramp it up a little bit. Whereas, if you're kind of still able to follow your plan, you can kind of have a sense. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, but you can have a sense where you're going. But if you got to ramp it up, okay, now we got to, increase the rate of loss by half a pound to a pound a week, then, you're kind of, I wouldn't say uncharted territory, but it really becomes a less desired position, obviously, but it's kind of hard to see where the end product's going to be like that. At least that's what I've found so far.
Well, and you're not just fighting physiology at that point. You're also fighting psychology, the stress of being behind, sleep.
Yeah.
They'll just start to do things that are going to be damaging. Whereas if you're a little bit ahead or on track, it's just a different mindset. Just confidence is built versus, destroyed.
So just, we try to focus everything thinking about the newbie competitors who may have only had experience either trying to coach themselves or with someone who's just giving them a meal plan and telling them exactly what to eat, and they don't know any of the details behind it or the reasoning. So can you kind of at least briefly explain what a diet break is?
Yes.
A diet break is, a set amount of time. For me, it usually is a week, spent at maintenance. Adjusted maintenance. It's not the maintenance you were at 6 months ago when prep started or 4 months ago when prep started. It's a week spent at. Yeah. So I'll give you a rough estimate. Let's say I have a girl who's on 140 protein, 120 carbs, 40 fat, and maybe she's doing 45 minutes of cardio to an hour every day, 5 or 6 days a week, right? A diet break with her would look like, basically, I'd bring her numbers up to refeed level. So I might bring her up to 170, 180 carbs. I might bring her up to 50 grams of fat. Might bring her cardio down to 20 minutes a day, week. It's not drastic.
And
she's not going to gain weight.
She's theoretically how close into prep, or how close to her show?
Oh, maybe 4 or 5 weeks out, 6 weeks out, something like that.
I just want everybody to understand that you can still do these sorts of things in prep. A lot of the ladies seem to think that you only kind of play around and fiddle with your numbers in off season, and it's just like full steam ahead for prep.
It's scary. Getting buy-in from a client in prep you have to have a record of success, because telling a girl or a guy who wants to be on stage in 5 weeks and shredded and feels like they're not really shredded yet, hey, we're going to take a week of a diet break. You have to build some trust with the client about that. I've had enough track record. I've literally, I have people that go, I'll do whatever you say. So, I have a little bit of track record, and my favorite thing, and I even try to document this a little bit, is, hey, here's my girl 1 week ago. She's dropped a pound at maintenance. why did she drop weight during maintenance? Well, maybe she slept better. Maybe her NEAT was up. You know, maybe she trained harder. Maybe her digestion improved, hormonal health improved. Because that's exactly what we saw with the Matador study. You know, all those things kind of improve. And the real success for me, because, you know, it doesn't really matter how good your diet breaks and prep are if you don't have results on stage, which I've had. But the real thing that I love is that last year was probably the first year in my entire coaching that I don't think I had a single client come out of a show and gain weight rapidly. Now, I'm not saying they should stay stage lean. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying uncontrollable eating, depression. You know, if anything, I had many girls that were just like, wow, I feel great. I don't even feel like going out to eat after a show. You know, what I've enjoyed is getting the result, but also putting people in a position to be successful.
And come out of the show with that healthy mindset.
Yeah. It's not like, you know, and, you know, I did this my first prep. I literally treated prep like all or nothing. And then literally when that day was over, it was like the floodgates opened. That was 2008, my first show. Last year, or 2018, when I competed, my last show ended, nothing changed. I literally ate the same, trained the same, did the same cardio. I dropped it down a little bit. I, you know, if I wanted a snack, I had, but there was no, you know, oh, I haven't in a while. I haven't had this in a while. No, I just kind of kept doing my normal thing because I took diet breaks. I took a long time to get the weight off, and it just felt completely different to me.
No, absolutely. So the next thing I want to ask about is,
hang on, I want to, sorry, just for the people listening out there, I wanted to make one more clarification and have you just briefly explain when you talk about adding food in when you've done a diet break and you've got to get away from maintenance and back into your deficit. I just brain farted there. I'm sorry. But you talked about adding food in prep if they've peaked too early.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
It basically looks like a break. So what I typically do with a very lean athlete, because they behave very differently. It can actually get kind of weird because it'll be really, really hard to get lean. Then all of a sudden you'll have like back-to-back refeeds and you'll drop a pound. And I'll say, okay, let's add another refeed day, and they'll drop, and I'll add another refeed day. And then you got to start bringing the food up to keep up with the metabolism. There's this really funny window, and all these things start to ramp up while you're stage lean. It can actually make peaking difficult because you almost can't add food in quick enough to stay filled out. They start burning through food really crazy. It's something Dr. Joe coined years ago called metabolic building. And it's how he prepped me in 2018. And it's, you know, years ago when I came to him, I was having trouble peaking some of my athletes. You know, he gave me this approach called the, what do we call it? The linear progressive load, where we kind of start loading carbs in going into a show instead of just a big load at the end of the week. It's progressively building all week. And so when I say add food, sometimes it's literally 10 to 15 carbs a day, 20 carbs a day. You know, for a male, it might be 25 to 35 or 40, because, you know, men are just, but typically it's just a very gradual, you know, you have to be really in tune with the athlete. You have to understand what's going on. But, you know, my peak plans are, you know, we do a check-in every morning and every evening during peak week. So I really, when you get that much data, you just start to notice trends and things. And so, you know, if I have a girl that's like, hey coach, I just did my 2 refeed days and the scale's down, I'll be like, okay, add a third, you know. You know, so you just start to look for things, and you start to notice trends with certain individuals or certain groups.
Yeah, and you're able to do that and get in tune with the athlete when you allow enough time for the prep that you can do these little experiments on the way there. So
yeah, it's not always the case. I'm not saying that like, hey, I have a perfect track record. No, there's people that are going into peak week doing 2 hours of cardio a day on, you know, 70 grams of carbs because we just need to get the fat off. Doesn't matter how good your peaking plan is if you have body fat. So yeah, but that's always the goal with me. And, you know, more and more I'm getting better and better at it.
Yeah, I mean, the peaking schedule you're talking about is what he started with Natalie, and he kind of taught us how to do it, and we did it with our clients too, and I absolutely love it. I think Adam said it's like you're chasing the tightness, basically, is what you're doing. And I found that the less variables that you change, the more you can control what happens. You know, of course, we know that with water and sodium and stuff like that, but, you know, with carbs and fats too, if you can keep it pretty similar, then you're ahead of the game. And it's just kind of comes to fine tuning. And I absolutely love that strategy. I'm no more into the, let's take a little bit of more risk unless you absolutely have to. But the less risk you take, if you're in tune with your athlete, the more of an opportunity you're going to hit the nail on the head come show day. And I absolutely love it.
Well, and that's honestly where things like a hamburger can come in handy because, I've had athletes that their metabolism ramped up so much that, girls were eating 400 and 500 grams of carbohydrates the day before a show, waking up flat. And what I found was like, you almost need something to slow that down. So and it's something we test, but a burger the night before a show can help your kind of body wake up ready to go and not wake up stressed because you're kind of flattened out and you don't have enough time to get enough food and water in before you hit stage. So yeah, I mean, but this is all kind of the art of peaking for stage. It's never the same. It's if you have the exact same peaking plan from one show to the next, I think that's a problem. Like it should probably be similar. There should be some variables changing. Because I have girls come to me and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've had the same peaking plan for all shows I've ever done," and I'm like, "That's not a peaking plan. That's a cutter approach."
You want to explain why it would? I mean, the person is changing. I mean, just audience understand that why you would need a different one, and you don't just get a coach once and then you compete with that exact same plan every time and expect to have good results.
Yeah, well, the basic during peak week, you learn so much. Do you look better on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? When did we look our best? Was it the day of the show? Was it the day after the show? If it was the day after the show, what'd you do on the day of the show? What'd you do 2 days before? So I'm always looking. Yeah, I'm always looking to move the pendulum. I love the linear progressive load. Some people do not look best after that high day. They look best one day after it. So I'll do the progressive load day. Friday, I'll pull it back to maintenance, do a light little full body circuit. They'll wake up the morning of the show, go to the gym and do like a little walk and a little light body circuit and eat their first meal and boom, we're on. So it just comes down to learning from each show. What day did you look your best during that process?
Yeah, I want to back up just a little bit because you said from peak week plan to peak week plan, you probably need to have variables change because things change. Want to kind of make sure people out there not misinterpreting that. The peak week plan itself, if you're still tight and you're still right, you don't have to change variables. Add carbs.
I've written peak week plans before that every day was the same.
Exactly.
You look great. Don't tinker.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean you if you don't have variables during your peak week plan, you're talking about from peak week plan to peak week plan.
I'm saying if you've done 17 shows and you're doing the same, cutting water on the same day and taking the same diet, expecting a different result, nope.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure everybody out there understood that. So with that, do you have another question? Because I do.
I thought you were going to go.
Yeah. So now let's go back to the other end of the spectrum. And one of the most common questions we get it all the time, and it happens probably pretty much all through off season. When am I going to start prep? When is it time to start prep? We have a few standards we look at. There's a lot of things, obviously, but we kind of start with a few general things like want to make sure their calories are high enough. And typically we'll take girls, we want you to get to at least about 15 to 17 times body weight. If you can go over that without putting any more body fat on, 17 to 20 seem to have put the best results in. Now, I'm also talking again, not doing that and just adding calories in just to get it up there because you'll put body fat on too quick. We're talking about a slow, approach. So we kind of keep the body fat off as much as possible. But we found if we get the ones that we got to 17 to 20, every one of them last year either won their class, won an overall, or a pro card. Every one of them. Now, it doesn't mean you have to get to that to do that. It's just from the ones that we worked with, that's where they were all at. There was a lot of them who were successful between 15 to 17. Pretty much everybody was last year. So we have that little bitty standard. So when you're having the conversation, what do you look at? Like, we can't do it until this, or whatever the case may be.
Well, the first priority is what is the competitor's goal? So if the competitor says like, listen, I want to go win the overall at the national show, that's a very different conversation than a girl that just says, well, I just want to go see what the sport is all about, see if I like it.
Correct.
One of my favorite indicators for when we should start prep is when people tell me, I'm just sick of eating, or I feel stuffed all the time. if I can't talk them out of prep, it's probably a good time to start a prep. That's basically.
Yeah, I like that actually. Yeah.
Yeah, because if I can be like, I show in the fall. Okay, that's good. No, coach, listen, I want to do this show in July. I'm all in. I like that emotional kind of connection to the process. Of course, I love getting people's calories over 2,000. I think that's like a baseline good mark. But again, that comes down to individual differences in these and, how lean they get. I have girls that their calories might be lower than that, but they might never get 10 pounds over stage weight. That's just what they want for their lifestyle. They might be coaches themselves. They might work at Orange Theory Fitness, so it just depends person to person. But I do love that. I love getting the carbohydrates up over 200 and the fats up 60. I love having like a cushion to start. I mean, there's definitely some warning signs where I will not prep somebody if they're maintaining their weight on 1,300 calories an hour of cardio every day and they have 25 pounds to go. We're not getting there.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is something that, especially the ladies that try and coach themselves, they need at least to know when they should not be starting prep.
Well, if you say this to yourself, if you're dieting for a show and you're like, man, my body responded a lot different last time, that's a warning sign.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're going to make the situation worse if you do that prep. Do I mean you shouldn't prep? No, I'm saying know the hazards and know that once this prep is over, which you're going to have to work harder than you did last time, you need to take time off.
Yeah. And that's especially important for the ladies that use the stage as a motivator for staying in shape.
Yeah.
Because then you're getting yourself further in the hole every time you're doing it if you're not going about it right. And then it's all mental, or a lot of it is mental. And then you feel worse about yourself than you did when you first found the stage as a motivator.
Yeah. If competing can turn into an addiction, that is destructive for sure.
I mean, one thing, body dysmorphia, it's real too. And we have a lot of clients who come from other people who, as soon as they want to start prep, they're fine. They don't care if they're at 1,300 calories and doing 45 minutes of cardio a day already, because unfortunately, there are those coaches who just want to put a bunch of numbers up on stage. And then they don't care what happens after the stage. When the lights are turned off, you step on, off the stage for the last time, what happens next? And it's one of the things I've always admired about you, and we do the same thing. We're not just looking at, okay, where we want to be on show day. We're also looking at where do we want to be 3 weeks after show day, for the last 6 months, because that's a big thing to me, because these people, they're putting their goals in our hands, but they're also putting, their health in our hands as well. And we really got to look out for that. Yeah, and emotions, the psychological aspect, everything. So we really got to look out for that. But so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. You have somebody coming from one of those coaches who had them doing, an hour and a half of cardio a day and 500, 600, 700 calories. And now they come off stage and they've just gone and experienced a horrible rebound, but they still want to compete again. So in that situation, what type of conversation do you have with them? They come and say, I still want to compete next year. They're not going to be ready for that. What's the conversation like?
Well, I'll try to discuss what I think is going to happen. And if I cannot not convince them, I'll typically, if it's somebody that I really believe in, will work with them. With the caveat, I'll say, hey, listen, here's the situation. I think it's going to go terribly wrong. But let's start the process and see what happens. But if we're not losing weight at the rate we need to, that's when you have to listen to me. Okay. Because what I don't want to do is turn that person loose, because there are plenty of vultures in this industry that are like, oh yeah, I can fix your metabolism while 3 pounds. I can get you stage lean, no problem. Because once they have the money, they don't give a crap. So I would rather have this person under my gut I can have a positive influence on, set them up for the right approach mentally and guide them through that, than just risk that, now they're going to come back to me a year later in an even worse position. Because I've done that before. I've taken the high road and said, no, I won't prep you. Well, they're going to find someone that will. So if it's somebody that you believe in, take an interest and don't take their determination as the negative. The one thing that I'll say is I've worked with, I'll say this all the time. I just work with the most amazing athletes. When men prep will do anything. You can find a girl that's willing to eat tilapia and asparagus and do 2 hours of cardio, walking backwards on a treadmill, wear a squeam. that is a determined human being. Give them a good plan, they are going to flourish. I love taking girls off these crappy teams, turning them pro, and then all the other girls on that team go, what the hell? She was eating this during prep. She had water on show day. She didn't pass out the day before, and she actually got the results that we wanted. That's how I got where I am. So yeah, I think those are some of the most talented, dedicated people there are, is those women that just will not quit.
I guess you could say they've been down that dark road before, don't want to go back, so they're looking for somebody to take them on the right path.
I don't know. I mean, I think some of them are just determined. They like the suffering almost. They like the one thing that I didn't understand at first was, why do these girls keep going back to these coaches when they know the approach is bad? It took me years to figure out what the reason was. Community. They are friends with these women. They are on the same team. They like to brag about, hey, I'm on so-and-so's team, and so is this person, and we're all eating tilapia now. And we're in this together. And so the big focusing on 2020 is community. First gym. I had my first pro physique experience. I'm going to have an event at the Arnold. Like, every time I go somewhere, we are bringing the community together, because once we break down that, all the other coaches that have these terrible approaches are going to adapt. I don't want to put them out of business. I want to change their business.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, I want you to say that one more time clear, because that is very important.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't want to put other coaches out of business. I want to force them to be better at their business.
Love that. Love that, man. That's a highlight right there. Good.
Like
you have something?
Let me collect myself.
Well, that's a pretty profound statement.
Yeah, I know. So you stop.
Well, I know, some of the personalities out there, they take the very aggressive approach and like, I want to destroy these people. And it's like, they're successful for a reason. Just because you don't like the meal plans that they're giving, look at what else that they're doing that could be an asset to you. One of my favorite stories, and I always talk about this, is, I don't know if you ever read the Sam Walton book. Sam Walton is obviously Walmart and Sam's Club and all that. So I'll paraphrase it. He took, when they first opened Walmart, Kmart was the biggest retailer in the country. And so he took a bunch of his executives and said, let's go walk around Kmart and see what they're doing. And so afterwards they all walked around Kmart for an hour. They get back to the boardroom, and one by one, the first person says, well, wow, we have better lighting. We have wider aisles than Kmart. They all highlighted what Walmart was doing better. And then Sam Walton got up and said, well, here's what they're doing better than us. Their makeup counter is 30 feet longer. When you check out, they always have enough registers, so don't focus on what you're doing better than other people. Focus on what they're doing better than you, and bring that up to that level. And then you can start to kind of change the conversation. And it took me a while to realize that.